Imagine driving home after an exciting basketball game with four of your closest friends. The radio plays softly as laughter fills the car, and the cold February night feels just like any other. You stop at a small convenience store, buy snacks for the ride, and continue toward home. But somewhere along that familiar highway, the road takes an unexpected turn. Hours later, your perfectly working car is found abandoned high in the snowy mountains, miles away from your planned route. The doors are unlocked, there are no signs of a struggle, and the five men inside have completely vanished. Nearly 50 years later, investigators, families, and thousands of people still ask the same haunting question: what really happened to the Yuba County Five? On February 24, 1978, five close friends from Yuba County, California were looking forward to what should have been one of the happiest weekends of their lives. The next morning, they were scheduled to compete in a basketball tournament with their team, the Gateway Gators, a program created for adults with intellectual disabilities. To most people, it may have seemed like just another local game, but for these five men, it was something they had been eagerly preparing for. They talked about it for days, packed their uniforms, and couldn't wait to step onto the court. The five friends were Jack Madruga, Bill Sterling, Ted Weir, Jackie Hewitt, and Gary Mathias. Although several of them had mild intellectual disabilities, they lived surprisingly independent lives. They held jobs, helped their families, and followed routines they rarely broke. Their families described them as kind, responsible, and deeply committed to the basketball team. Missing an important game without telling anyone was simply not something they would do. That Friday evening, the group decided to drive about 50 miles to the city of Chico to watch a college basketball game at California State University. It wasn't an unusual trip. They enjoyed basketball so much that spending the evening watching a game together sounded like the perfect way to prepare for their own tournament the next day. The game ended around 10 p.m., and witnesses later recalled seeing the five friends in good spirits. Before beginning the drive home, they stopped at Bear's Market, a small convenience store in Chico. According to the store clerk, the men bought chocolate milk, soft drinks, candy bars, chips, and other snacks for the road. They joked with each other, paid for their items, and left without attracting any attention. Nothing about their behavior seemed unusual. They appeared calm, cheerful, and excited to head home. That brief stop at the convenience store would become the last confirmed sighting of all five men together. From there, they should have driven south toward Yuba City, a route they knew well and one that would normally bring them home in less than 2 hours. Their families expected them to return that same night, get some sleep, and wake up early for the basketball tournament. But they never arrived. As midnight passed, family members began to worry. By the following morning, the concern had turned into panic. None of the five men had returned home, none of them had contacted their families, and none of them showed up for the basketball game they had been so excited to play. For the families, something felt terribly wrong. These weren't men who simply disappeared without a word. Their lives revolved around routines, responsibilities, and the people they loved. Walking away voluntarily made no sense. Every passing hour only deepened the mystery. Then, just when investigators began searching for answers, they discovered something that made the case even more confusing. The friend's car had been found, but not where anyone expected. It was sitting abandoned high in the snow-covered mountains, more than 70 miles away from the route they should have taken. And that shocking discovery was only the beginning of one of America's strangest unsolved mysteries. When investigators learned that the five men had not returned home, they first believed the group had simply gotten lost. But as the hours passed, that explanation became harder to believe. Then, 4 days later, on February 28th, a forest ranger made a surprising discovery. About 70 miles from Chico, deep inside the Plumas National Forest, he found Jack Madruga's turquoise Mercury Montego. The car was parked on a narrow mountain road near Rogers Cow Camp. At first glance, nothing seemed unusual. The doors were unlocked. There was no damage to the car. It had not crashed. There were no signs of a fight. Inside, investigators found snack wrappers, empty drink containers, and the men's personal belongings. Everything suggested that the five friends had been inside the car only a short time before they left it. But one question immediately stood out. Why had they come here? This road was far away from the route they should have taken home. None of the families knew of any reason the group would travel into these mountains that night. Even more confusing, the car was still in working condition. Some reports later suggested that it may have been stuck because of the snow. However, investigators found that the vehicle was not badly trapped. In fact, several people believed it could have been driven back onto the road with only a little effort. There was also enough fuel left in the tank. Nothing suggested that the car had completely broken down. So why would all 5 men leave it behind? The weather made the situation even more serious. Night temperatures in the mountains had dropped below freezing. Snow covered large parts of the area. Without proper winter clothing, surviving outside for long would be extremely difficult. Search teams quickly arrived. Police officers, forest rangers, volunteers, and even military helicopters joined the search. They looked through forests, mountain roads, rivers, and deep snow. Everyone hoped the 5 friends would be found alive. Days passed, but there was no sign of them. No footprints that clearly explained where they had gone. No clear trail. No answers. Then, investigators received another piece of information. A man named Joseph Shones later told police that on the same night the 5 friends disappeared, he had suffered a heart attack while driving through the mountains. He said his car became stuck in the snow. As he waited for help, he claimed he saw headlights nearby. According to his statement, he also heard several people talking. At one point, he even believed he saw a woman holding a baby. Because of his medical condition and the darkness, investigators could never fully confirm what he had actually seen. His story raised more questions than answers. Was he really seeing the missing 5 men? Or had he seen someone else completely? No one could say for certain. Weeks went by. The search continued. But the mountains refused to give up their secret. Then, almost 4 months after the disappearance, search teams finally found the first real clue. And what they discovered made the mystery even harder to understand. Nearly 4 months after the 5 men disappeared, the search finally led investigators to a small Forest Service trailer in a remote part of the mountains. It was located almost 20 miles from where Jack Madruga's car had been found. When search teams entered the trailer, they immediately realized that someone had been living there. Inside, they found the body of Ted Weir. He was lying in a bed covered with several blankets. At first, it looked like someone had tried to keep him warm. The trailer had supplies. There was enough food to keep a person alive for months. There were canned meals, dehydrated food, and even matches. But almost none of it had been used. Investigators also found a working propane heating system. It could have provided warmth during the freezing nights. For reasons no one could explain, it had never been turned on. The medical examination revealed that Ted had survived for several weeks after the group disappeared. During that time, he had lost a large amount of weight. This meant he did not die immediately. He stayed alive for a long time. But without enough food or proper care, his condition slowly became worse. One detail confused investigators even more. Ted was wearing shoes that did not belong to him. They were later identified as Gary Mathias's shoes. Gary himself was nowhere to be found. This raised another question. Had Gary stayed with Ted for some time? If he did, where did he go afterward? Outside the trailer, search teams continued looking through the surrounding forest. Not far away, they found the remains of Jack Madruga and Bill Sterling. Both had died from exposure to the freezing weather. A short distance from them, they found Jackie Hewitt. His body was also discovered in the mountains. Only one member of the group was still missing, Gary Mathias. Despite one of the largest searches in the area's history, no trace of him was ever found. No clothing, no personal belongings, no remains. Nothing. His disappearance became one of the biggest unanswered questions in the entire case. As investigators tried to understand what had happened, they noticed something else. Many of the decisions made that night simply didn't make sense. The men had left a working car behind. They had walked through deep snow for miles. They reached a trailer filled with food and heat. Yet most of the supplies were never used. There were enough resources to increase their chances of survival. But for reasons no one could explain, they didn't use them. Almost every answer led to another question. And nearly 50 years later, those questions remain unanswered. In the final part, we'll look at the main theories behind the Yuba County Five mystery and why no single explanation has ever been able to answer every question. Over the years, investigators, journalists, and researchers have come up with several theories to explain what happened to the Yuba County Five. But even today, none of them can answer every question. The first theory is that the group simply got lost. After leaving Chico, they may have taken a wrong turn and accidentally driven into the mountains. As they continued climbing higher, the road became covered with snow. Eventually, they decided to leave the car and look for help on foot. At first, this sounds like the most reasonable explanation. But one question still remains. Why did they drive so far away from the road that would have taken them home? No one has ever found a clear answer. The second theory focuses on Gary Mathias. Unlike the other four men, Gary had served in the U.S. Army. He had experience spending time outdoors and knew basic survival skills. Some people believe Gary may have led the group through the mountains until they found the Forest Service trailer. If that's true, it could explain how Ted Weir survived for several weeks. But if Gary was able to reach the trailer, what happened to him afterward? His body has never been found. The third theory suggests that someone else may have been involved. Some people believe the group could have met another person after leaving Chico. Perhaps someone asked them to follow another road, or perhaps they became frightened and tried to escape. However, investigators never found any evidence of another vehicle, a struggle, or any sign that someone had attacked them. Because of that, this theory remains only a possibility. Another explanation is that fear and confusion affected their decisions. It was dark. The temperature was below freezing. They were surrounded by snow and unfamiliar mountains. In a situation like that, people can make choices that don't seem logical afterward. This could explain why they left the car. But it still doesn't explain why the food inside the trailer was barely used, or why the heater was never turned on. Nearly 50 years have passed since that winter night. The families never received all the answers they were hoping for. Investigators searched the mountains. Researchers studied the evidence. Many theories have been discussed, but none of them fully explain every detail of the case. Maybe the truth disappeared somewhere in those mountains. Or maybe one important piece of the story has simply never been found. Until that day comes, the Yuba County Five will remain one of America's most mysterious, unsolved cases. So, what do you think really happened that night? Did the five friends simply get lost? Or is there still a missing piece of the story waiting to be discovered? Let me know your theory in the comments. And if you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to subscribe to ChronoVerse for more true mysteries and unsolved stories. Some mysteries are solved by time. Others remain trapped in history forever. This was ChronoVerse.